Good morning, everyone. This is Billy Trout with the Tennessee Department of Revenue's Taxpayer Services and Education section. On behalf of our Commissioner, David Geragano, and our staff in Taxpayer Services, including our Director, Elena Turner, we'd like to welcome you to today's presentation on motor fuel taxes in Tennessee. I have with me today Miss Katie Julian, who'll be walking you through some information and some slides. And we have two great technical experts from our audit division that are ready to chime in as well. We have Mr. Rodney Pendley and we have Mr. Mike Ingram with us today. And over in our chat area, Dan Vinson, our Assistant Director of Taxpayer Services, is available to assist as well. So we got a whole big old team here for you this morning. We hope the information that we have to present to you today is very helpful to you. Motor fuels is a very specialized area, something that not too many of us know a lot about, quite honestly, in the Department of Revenue. That's why we have our experts online with us here too. But what we thought we would do is give you an opportunity to look at the information that we have for you today and to tell you how to get more information should you have questions about this very specialized tax. So you see the information on your slide here. You should be able to hear what I'm saying. If not, then of course, you're obviously not able to hear me, but you can read what's on the slide. Uh, a recording of today's presentation will be available most likely tomorrow on our website at the same place where you found the link to register for this in our webinar section here too. And of course, any questions that you have regarding specific tax accounts, we will not answer in the webinar chat or anything like that today due to taxpayer privacy issues. So what we want you to do is to reach out to us by phone. We have a special phone number for Rodney and Mike's group as well. And then, of course, we can accept emails and get that information to them as well, too, through revenue support. So with that, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Katie. And Katie, if you'll just walk us through this stuff, and then we'll entertain any questions that folks might have later on. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Billy. Just a few more things before we get started here. The chat is turned off during the PowerPoint, during the presentation part of this webinar, but as soon as it's over, we'll open up the chat for you to ask questions specifically to this panel. So if you've got questions throughout, just save them up and type them in right when we get done with the presentation part of this so that we can have them ready for the discussion. And also, there is a link over in the chat right now that is to materials for this presentation. So it's basically just a PDF of the presentation. So any hyperlinks, you can keep the PDF, and any hyperlinks that are in there, you can follow directly from the PDF. So navigate over there either now or when we are done. And with that, we'll go ahead and talk about motor fuels. Let's see here. For some reason it is not letting me progress through the slides, and I'm not sure why. Here we go. It was just slow to react. Not sure why.
Katie, it let me do it, so maybe I have control. Do you want to take control back?
Yeah, let me see. Oh, that's right. During our practice, you.
There we go. You should be able to do that.
Yep. Here we go.
All right.
Yeah, I'm ready now. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about motor fuel taxes in Tennessee. We've got several motor fuel taxes. You can see them listed here. Um, the first one is the special tax. It is imposed on all petroleum products. It is paid in addition to the other required motor fuel taxes and fees. The due date on this one, like most, is going to be the 20th of the month following the month of activity. All right. The rate for that special tax is basically 1 cent per gallon. The environmental assurance fee, it's imposed on all petroleum products as well. It is paid in addition to all the other required motor fuel taxes and fees as well, and again is also due on the 20th day of the month following the month of activity. The rate for the environmental assurance fee is 0.004 per gallon. The gasoline tax. This is the big one. This is the one that affects everyone in this state and everyone that drives through this state. It's a tax that's imposed on gasoline, fuel, alcohol, and substitutes when first imported into or sold, distributed in Tennessee. Same as the other ones, the due date for the gas tax is the 20th day of the month following activity, and the rate from July 1 on, so I mean July 1, 2019 on, the rate is now 26 cents per gallon, and that has increased. Back in 2017, there was a law passed that was called the Improve Act, and it increased that gas tax over a period of 5 years or several years. The Improve Act had different amounts of time that the increase was over, but that one has come up to and is now 26 cents per gallon. The diesel tax, it's imposed on diesel fuel when it crosses the terminal rack or upon import from a facility below the terminal bulk system. The due date is the 20th of the month following the month of activity. And there's a rate for clear diesel and dyed diesel used for common carrier to transport, which is 27 cents per gallon, and dyed diesel is tax exempt from motor fuel if used off road. So on the farm, that kind of thing, agricultural purposes. It would still be subject to sales and use tax, that dyed diesel, but it would be exempt from motor fuel tax if used off road. Another tax here, we've got liquefied gas tax. It's a tax imposed on liquefied gas used for the propulsion of motor vehicles on the public highways in Tennessee. The due date, the user files a report on or before July 25th each year. So this is not a monthly report. Dealers file a report. Let's see, I'm sorry, the tax rate there is 22 cents. Now it's 22 cents. It was another one of those that was increased through the Improve Act, but as of July of 2019 on, it's 22 cents. The compressed natural gas tax is a use tax imposed on compressed natural gas for use of the propulsion of motor vehicles on public highways in this state, due on the 25th day of the month following activity. So the other gas taxes that are monthly taxes are due on the 20th. This one's due on the 25th. It's got a tax rate of 21 cents. Again, that was one that increased due to Improve Act. The export tax, finally. The export tax is a tax that is imposed on all petroleum products subject to the special tax that are stored in Tennessee and then subsequently exported to points outside of Tennessee. It is paid in lieu of the special tax, and the due date is the 20th of the month following the month of activity. The rate there is going to be 1/20th of 1 cent per gallon. If the 1 cent special tax has already been paid, then 19/20ths of the 1 cent per gallon of the special privilege tax may be credited on the monthly return or refunded. So lots of information I threw out to you just now about all the different tax rates. You can find all that information on our website. When we get to the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you where the resources are where you can get more details about that. So the allocations of motor fuel taxes. Motor fuel taxes are the source of revenue for the majority of transportation projects, in this state and on the local level. You can see here we just recently put out our annual report for the fiscal year 22. Uh, Motor fuel taxes are a pretty big piece of the pie, you can see here. We were talking to Rodney and Mike about this. It's not proportionate to the amount of tax accounts we have for motor fuel taxes. A relatively small amount of tax accounts compared to the other tax types we have, but a good percent of our state revenue, 6%, coming in from motor fuels taxes. You can see on the graph here where that money goes. 72.4% to the highway fund. Like I just said, it is it funds the majority of transportation projects from the highway fund. A little goes to counties and municipalities. Um, as you all know, roads are critical public infrastructure for a thriving state, right? They help us get where we need to go, the roads do. And here's an interesting fact. Tennessee has over 96,000 miles of public roads, nearly all of which are owned by the state and local government.
This slide combines a pie chart and a 3D bar chart to illustrate FY22 motor fuel tax revenue and allocations. The pie chart breaks down the sources of motor fuel tax revenue, while the bar chart shows how the collected revenue was allocated among various programs and funds. Together, the chart provides a visual overview of where motor fuel tax revenue comes from and how it is distributed.
So those funding to take care of those roads is the majority of that comes from this tax that is paid by the consumer and remitted by um, those who have the tax accounts. So another source of revenue for the highway fund and for the transportation projects is also the registration fees that you pay when you register a vehicle in this state. And interestingly, we've got lots of people moving into Tennessee, so vehicle registration is going up. So lots more cars on the road, um, causing wear and tear to the roads, but a good problem to have. A lot of these cars are a lot more fuel efficient these days, right? So not as much the increase of revenue from these motor fuel taxes is not necessarily proportionate with the amount of increase of usage on the roads. So our state legislature and Governor Lee are currently coming up with ideas to make that to fix that issue. Again, it's a good problem to have fuel efficient vehicles, but those vehicles still drive on these roads. So we'll hopefully get that figured out in this state at some point in the near future. So we're going to talk now about the registration process for motor fuels. The application for registration, it's used to apply for tax registration for the motor fuel taxes that are applicable to businesses. It's administered by us, the Tennessee Department of Revenue, and it does not register you for the other taxes and fees and permits that you need. So let's say you need a motor fuels taxes account, and you also need a sales tax account. You're going to register for those separately. So the process, you can still apply via the paper application. Here's how you get to it. Click on tn.gov/revenue, then tax resources, then forms, and then motor fuels forms. You can follow this link, that's the hyperlink you see here if you are following along on the PDF course.
The next slide reads application-paper application with 4 steps on how to complete the application on the tn.gov/revenue website. From there, you would go down to tax resources. From there, you would go to forms and then motor fuels forms. Katie speaks to the slide.
And TINTAP, a much easier way, in my opinion, to do everything related to Tennessee taxes is through your TINTAP account. You'd first need to set up a TINTAP account and then add access to your motor fuels accounts that way. The application for motor fuels, this is just some information that you're going to be required to provide, whether it's on the paper application or through TINTAP. Obviously, general business information, the nature of the business activity, the type of bond, the different types of license types, and they are detailed when you are going through the application process. Questions that are pertaining to common or private carrier and whether you're a wholesaler or supplier. A schedule for terminal operators, suppliers, or permissive suppliers. Also a worksheet for determining the bond amount for deferred wholesalers, the bond form for petroleum products and alternative fuels, and of course, instructions. As you're walking through the process on TINTAP and online, it'll kind of give you the instructions as you go. If you go to the paper application and the link that I provided on the previous slide, you can also find the written out instructions there, which might be helpful to you. Very important here, when I asked Mike and Rodney, what are the main issues with these tax accounts? And they let me know that the most common reason for rejected applications is missing bond information. So be very cognizant to make sure that you are not missing anything with your bond, and especially special note here, make sure that that bond is notarized. Don't want to spend all this time going through the registration process and then just to have it returned to you or not be able to be processed because of missing information. I know this probably goes without saying, but it's more common than you would think that missing information on an application in general is pretty much the #1 reason why they get denied or get slowed up in the process. So fill out everything when you're filling out the application. Online, it doesn't let you proceed until you provide all your information, but another note here, it's very important that you notify us in writing if the business ownership changes in any manner, and that includes selling or closing, adding or changing partners, transferring or changing the ownership of the business, or any change in corporate structure. And obviously also if the business location changes. This goes for all tax accounts, not just motor fuels. So That's kind of an across the board notify us in any of these instances. All right, now we're going to talk about the licensing process, and again, several of the forms that are needed and forms and returns and such. You may be required to obtain a license before beginning operations. We, the Tennessee Department of Revenue, we issue the following licenses for motor fuel industry. You see them listed here. There's a supplier's license, blender's license, terminal operators, exporters, transporters, importers, wholesalers, and a retailer's license for dyed diesel fuel. We're not going to go into detail today about all of these. We're going to talk about 4 main ones that affect most motor fuel tax accounts, which are the blender's license, the exporters, the wholesalers, and the license for dyed diesel fuel. So first off here, wholesaler license. Any person engaged in the business as a wholesaler who is not a licensed supplier or bonded importer must obtain a wholesaler's license. You can see the TCA there for that definition. And you only file when requesting a refund. There is no monthly filing requirement here. We're going to talk in a minute about that requesting a refund process. But in the process of requesting a refund here, that's when you would need this this wholesaler license. The exporter license, anyone other than a licensed supplier or licensed bonded importer who exports petroleum products to another state must obtain this exporter's license, and a monthly return filing is required for the exporter license. The dyed fuel at retail. Anyone other than a licensed wholesaler who sells dyed fuel at retail must obtain this license. There is no monthly filing requirement for this license. The blender's license, it is required by anyone who blends untaxed product with taxed product outside of the bulk transfer terminal system. And for the blender's license, a monthly return is required there. So several different form filing issues to discuss on the next few slides here. The following forms and payments are required to be filed on TINTAP. The distributor monthly fuel tax return, the exporter tax return and claim for refund. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Blender's return, petroleum products transporter return and terminal return, and the annual terminal return. We've got a link here. There's Excel templates for these motor fuel taxes that can be found on our website. You can click directly over there. They are also available directly on TINTAP during the filing process. So maybe use a combination there of the two. Go to the Excel templates on our website. Also, you can get them from directly from TINTAP. Okay, talking about refunds here, exemptions and refunds. There are a number of exemptions from the motor fuel taxes and refunds that may be requested upon payment of the tax. And that goes, again, for across the board with all of our tax types. A refund is applicable after payment of the tax has been made. Then you can request a refund. The exemptions and refunds include exports, governmental agency, kerosene that is not used in a motor vehicle and aviation fuel, auxiliary engines, contaminated fuels, casualty losses, end user, wholesaler sales to limited users, and prepaid users. So the wholesaler claim for refund. This is filed to request refund of diesel tax for sales to prepaid users, casualty, loss of gasoline, or diesel and undyed diesel contaminated with dyed diesel. Prepaid user customers must have an active permit, and a list of qualified permittees can be found on TINTAP once you're logged into your account. Another good reason to use TINTAP to do this is that you can see right there who the prepaid users are that have an active permit. Casualty losses must be filed within 60 days of the date of the loss and must contain an explanation of the occurrence. A claim may be filed on TINTAP or on paper, and information for the refund may be entered directly on TINTAP. Always recommend that. TINTAP is a very easy way to do this process. The exporter tax return and claim for refund. This is filed monthly to report all exports from Tennessee If the exports are Tennessee paid gallons, this form is used to request a refund of the Tennessee taxes. A return and a claim for refund together here for exporter tax. Governmental sales claim for refund. It's filed by wholesalers to request a refund of taxes on gallons sold to qualified governmental agencies. Qualified. It must be submitted on or before the last day of the second month following the month in which the exempt sales were made. An omnibus claim may be filed for any missed transactions between January 1 and June 30th of the following year. So one big claim there for transactions between that period of January 1 and June 30th. Customer must have an active government agency exemption permit for petroleum taxes, and that a list of those qualified agencies can be found on TINTAP. The claim can be filed on TINTAP or paper. Going to push the TINTAP way though, as always. And information can be entered directly on TINTAP, or when you're in TINTAP, you can upload your Excel template there as well. Blender's return, pretty simple here. It's filed monthly to report any untaxed product blended with taxed products. Okay, we're going to go on a quick little field trip here just to show you where this information is. But here's the slide that shows you the main, kind of my favorite spots on our website. Tax manuals and important notices. When you're on tn.gov/revenue, you can click on tax resources. We do not have a dedicated tax manual for motor fuels taxes at this point. For the main information you can find about motor fuels taxes is going to be in the taxes section. You can either click on the drop down from the top there or click on the tile that says taxes. That's going to be general tax info about all of our tax types. So a little more in-depth information than what we're going over today about motor fuels you can get to from clicking on taxes and then clicking on motor fuels taxes. Obviously, to get right over to TINTAP, that's where you register, file, pay, do lots of other stuff as well. Click on TINTAP. And then our help articles, revenue help, where it says questions here. I have a list of, these are the motor fuel, I've got a typo there, apologize for that, motor fuel tax help article links. If you've got the PDF, these are direct links over to the help article about all of these various topics that dive into a little bit more detail than we're able to go into during this short webinar directly related to motor fuel taxes there. So let me go away from this for just a moment and go into my web browser just to show you what we're talking about here. Go up to the Department of Revenue's main page, which is tn.gov/revenue. You can get over to the taxes page by clicking on either taxes or taxes here. We'll click on the tile taxes. You can see here we've got a lot of taxes in Tennessee. No income tax though, right? So that's a good thing. But clicking on motor fuels taxes, you can see we've got a subheading here for due dates and rates, registration and licensing, filing and paying. That takes you right over to TINTAP mainly. Information about exemptions and refunds, a direct link over to all of the forms related to motor fuels taxes, and publications and other resources for motor fuel taxes. You can see here, and we've got a slide in a minute with this as well, but the contact information for questions regarding motor fuels taxes on this overview main page, you can see Mike and Rodney both are with our audit division. They, as we have told you, are the subject matter experts on motor fuels taxes. This is a way to get directly in touch with their unit here, 615-532-6124. For questions about that XML upload, you can email those to efile.questions@tn.gov. For questions about refunds, 615-532-6902, and registration information, 615-532-5694. So specific motor fuels taxes information there. Back up to Revenue's homepage. The one other place I wanted to take you right now is over to Revenue Help and Questions. If you pay any taxes in Tennessee or a business in Tennessee, I hope you know about this page. Lots of great articles you can search. The article database there for any note for keywords, you can send us a email directly here, submit a request. If you don't find the answer you're looking for, you can submit a request right here. Let's click over on the taxes page, and then all of our tax types here, motor fuel taxes. So that's how you get directly over. We've got 17 articles here. Again, there's a link over to directly to these articles if you're looking at the PDF of this presentation, but here's how you get to them in the real world. Another great resource on this revenue help page is TINTAP help. Tons of information under each of these headings. So go back over to revenues homepage, and before we jump into the discussion portion, I just want to show you one other place. You have been to the taxpayer education and outreach page, because that's how you were able to register for this event, by clicking on tax webinars. But I'm going to show you where you'll find a recording of today's webinar. You click on tax webinars. This is where you would register. And then down at the bottom, webinar video library. This is where you will be able to find a recording of this motor fuels taxes webinar. Maybe later today, but definitely by tomorrow, we'll have it up on our website. You can view all of our other webinars here as well. A lot of people don't scroll all the way down on this page and know that this is here. So just want to call that to your attention. All right, let's go back over to the PowerPoint, the presentation here. And I'll stop on this page while Billy and Rodney and Mike come join us for some discussion. I'm also going to turn on the chat for a moment. So all attendees, you can chat now and send your question to all panelists. We don't have chat available to all attendees just to protect privacy, but you should be able to put a message into the chat right now that'll go directly to this group you're seeing, this panel right here. And Billy, Mike, Rodney, any thoughts come to your mind as we're going through this presentation here today about motor fuels?
Well, one thing, it looks like a couple of people are asking for the PDF for the PowerPoint. So, Katie, if you don't care, just copy and pasting that into
Sure.
chat, that'd be great. Thank you.
I will.
Nice job, Katie. Thank you very much. That's all you wanted to know and ever cared about motor fuels, I'm quite sure. But we got Rodney and Mike here with us, and just wanted to kind of talk about any of the other questions that you guys might have here too. But for Rodney, I think we got a question before as one of the people who had signed up for the webinar, and they were asking about this permissive supplier pre-collection election. Permissive supplier pre-collection election. Wow. When do you collect that and when do not? Can you just comment on that for just a couple of moments, please? Thank you.
Certainly. So a permissive supplier is someone who has elected to get this permissive supplier license. They are going to be holding inventory at an out-of-state IRS terminal. And so anytime they make a sale from their inventory at that out-of-state IRS terminal, they are going to be required to pre-collect the Tennessee taxes on any shipments that have an intended Tennessee destination. So if somebody had inventory in some other type of bulk facility other than an IRS terminal, they would not be required to pre-collect the taxes. Like I said, this is only applicable at out-of-state IRS terminals.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for answering that. And certainly, if there's anything else relative to that you need to ask, you probably just want to give Rodney or Mike a call, or anybody else in their unit using the 532-6124 area code 615 number that you see on your screen. I am picking up on a question from Kendall that said, did I miss the polling questions? No, you did not. We were trying something before the webinar regarding polling questions, so that may have popped up there for you. So we apologize if that did. We were just testing something out. So thank you. And there's no questions on that too. Rosine is asking, can I change the filing frequency for the distributor return? What would you guys say about that?
Uh,
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
no, it's in the statute that it's due the 20th day of the month following the month of activity. So no, that the filing frequency cannot be changed. It's a monthly return, and
Okay.
that's spelled out in the statute.
Okay. Thank you. Amber asks, does the government exemption exempt the government agency from both the excise tax on gas and clear diesel, as well as sales tax on dyed diesel fuel? And it does not, I believe. Would you guys agree with that?
That you are correct.
Right, because it is a exemption from motor fuel tax. Right.
Yes, the governmental exemption only applies to the motor fuel taxes.
Okay. Yep.
And by the same token, if they have a sales tax exemption, that does not apply for motor fuel. I mean,
Right.
the motor fuel taxes, that's strictly exempt from sales tax. So they're two separate exemption permits.
Yeah, apples and oranges, right?
Right, right.
There you go. There you go. That's a fair question, though. One that I'm sure
Yes.
that some people get mixed up with quite often. So yeah. Um, I was just trying to think of any other questions that people might have. The information seemed to be very clear. The one thing that stands out to me, just kind of from the outside looking in, is the different levels of taxation and licensing. I mean, there's a lot. So, if somebody's sort of new to this industry, it seems like there would be quite a lot to garble up there. So they may want to reach out to you guys and kind of make sure that they're number one registered correctly in our computer system, and then that they're doing things correctly moving forward regarding filing and payment. So anyway, that's one thing I would think about anyway. Katie, did you have anything that you wanted to throw out there that we may have missed on any of this? You're muted, Katie. I don't know why, but you are.
I wasn't saying anything important. It's okay.
Oh, okay, very good.
Nope, I can't think of anything else. Mike, Rodney, any frequently asked questions that y'all want to address, or issues that you'd like to put out here to our attendees that could make everybody's lives easier? Anything come to mind?
I really don't have anything at the moment. I do have to say one frequent question we get is also regarding the governmental agencies. So these governmental agencies do need to renew their permits every 4 years. And
Yes.
occasionally we'll have somebody file a governmental um, sales claim for refund, and the agency that perhaps they've sold to has not renewed their permit, or their permit has expired. We do not allow, refunds in that situation for sales to anyone with an expired permit. So, like I said, a lot of times that can just be alleviated by getting the governmental agency to come and renew their permit.
Which is pretty easy to do, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
very good.
and also, once someone that has a license and a motor fuel account, if they're logged into their TIN-TAP account and they look at their exporter, wholesaler, or whatever type of a motor fuel account they have, there's a link there to the petroleum licensee list. And that lists all of our licenses and governmental agencies, prepaid users, suppliers, whatever type of motor fuel license you have. That's a list of everything. And it's basically, it's updated, I believe, every night. So everybody should be on there except what's getting added today. And that should be posted on there tonight.
Very good. So that's comprehensive then. All
Yes,
right.
yes.
Very good. Hey guys, Marcy asked, my company is a wholesaler of synthetic motor oil and lubricants sold through independent dealers. Do these products fall under the special tax and environmental assurance tax? Or are they subject to any sort of lubricant excise tax? Do you happen to know that?
Um, No, that they are not subject to any of the motor fuel taxes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was easy enough. There you go. Okay. Amber says, is there a document or a resource for all exemptions for both excise and sales tax? I'm not really sure what she's asking there. Um, you know, Mike explained the resource on TinTap, that you can see all of your information there and all your licenses and that sort of thing there too. Um, Katie, you're sharing content there. Are you thinking
Yeah, I'm
something?
going over for this particular topic under the on the motor fuel taxes page, the subheading for exemptions and refunds. This just lists what the different exemptions and refunds are here. Not sure if there's another resource, maybe the forms page here might. Now, if you're wanting to know about exemptions for all tax types overall, you'd have to click on each individual tax type to find out the
Right,
different
right.
exemptions
That's
there.
that's what I was thinking. That may be what Amber's asking,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
is
But if that's the case, then for each of these tax types, for example, let's go back to all the taxes,
mhm,
clicking on sales and use tax, information here, you would click on the subheading for exemptions there for
mhm.
exemptions specific to sales tax. Same for all of our tax types, but for motor fuels taxes in particular, um,
Yep.
this is the most comprehensive place to get all the information
Okay.
here.
And Katie, Amber replied back and said a list of what taxes they're exempt from. Well, I think you
Oh,
just have to look at, you have to look at each tax type especially,
right.
and ask that specifically there
I
too.
mean, one place where you could go would be going back to our homepage here and revenue help. If you wanted to type in a search for your particular industry, you
Hmm.
might kind of chase it down a little bit further there. Other than clicking on each tax type, though, I'm not really sure there's a good. It might be a neat
Yeah.
resource to come up with, like a little grid for all the different exemptions for different
Yeah.
taxes, but
Yeah,
it's not
that would
something
be
we
sort of
have.
complex, but I'm
Yeah,
I'm not discounting what she's asking, that's for sure, but
right.
I don't know that we have a comprehensive resource like that, Amber. I'm sorry about that. Jennifer asks, when will we get a notification from, or will we get a notification from Tennessee before the 4-year mark? And that, or did they have to check on it themselves? I would not think that we send out any notification, guys. Do you agree?
Well, we actually do send out a notification to
Oh,
the governmental entities. Um, those will get sent out 45 days prior to their permit expiring, and we'll notify them that it is time for them to renew their permits. Now, these notifications do not get sent out to the wholesalers. It's only to the exempt governmental agencies.
So the only
okay.
way for the wholesaler to know is by checking out the link that Mike was talking about that you can get to directly through TinTap. Find out it's updated nightly. Find out who's current and who's not.
Yeah.
We
Yes,
don't know if they're coming up to be expiring soon per se, but okay.
Mhm. Yeah, and we will typically get questions from governments about that their certificate is expired, and they want to know how to get that, and then we'll refer them over to you and tell them how to send in their request to have a renewed applicant or a renewed exemption and that sort of thing. So we'll do that, but hopefully they'll get that notification like you're saying, and then they'll go ahead and take care of it. Um, and Suzanne asked if I wanted to export fuel, should I apply for a Tennessee exporter license before applying for the other state's importer license? What do you think about that?
We would,
yeah.
we wouldn't require that. I mean, that would just be, the other state may require something, but we wouldn't, if they wanted to export, they would just apply for an exporter's license and we would process it. We wouldn't require anything, any type of proof or anything from the other state.
Okay, very good. Very good. Katie Marcy's asking about CPE credit. Do you want to discuss how we do that nowadays?
Sure. This is still a new process for us. Last month was the first month we offer CPE credit for our webinars. When you registered, there was a yes/no answer to if you want CPE credit. If you answered yes on that, no further action is required. You will get a CPE certificate within the next week. If you missed that somehow or answered no but do want CPE credit, you can go to our website, which to the tax webinars page where we took you to show you where the webinar video archive is and where you registered for this webinar. There's a section there that asks you to request CPE credit. You can also request it there. You just answer the questions that it asks you and we'll issue it to you that way if you missed it on the registration form.
Yeah, we're glad to do that for you, Marcy, and anyone else that might need CPE credit too. Marlene asked, do other license types have expiration dates for their licenses, or do they have to be renewed?
No, all the other licenses are stay active, just as long as the companies are meeting the filing requirements. Yeah.
What if somebody changes addresses? What do you do? Do you have to reissue or anything?
No, we generally do not have to issue a new license.
Okay.
Of address. Generally, we only do if there is a change of ownership, such as a sale of a company or a change in the company's structure.
Okay, that makes perfect sense there. Yeah, for those, that's a little different than sales tax. If we have location changes in sales tax, we definitely need to reissue resale certificates and registration certificates. And a lot of that has to do with the allocation of the sales tax money back to local governments and stuff. So yeah. But anyway, I think we've answered everyone's questions. Anything else hit anybody's minds before we wrap up today?
I
Katie's
don't have anything further. No more
Yeah.
questions unless we missed something. If we did miss your question in the chat or if you think of something later, again, go back to this slide. Here's how you can reach out to us, revenue.support@tn.gov if you want to email us or call Mike and Rodney's unit directly with that 615-532-6124 number.
Mhm.
Any other taxes, if you've got a question about sales tax or anything, the middle number there, 615-253-0600 is who to call. But for motor fuels specific questions, reach out to Mike or Rodney directly or in their unit here at that top number.
Right. And
Next month, oh, yeah, sorry, Billy.
let me just mention real quickly that the 253-0600 number, I can't emphasize that enough. That's for general questions about taxes. If you've got a motor fuel question, it's probably best to reach out to our fellows right here at 532-6124 or whoever might answer the phone in that unit, because it is such a specialty area. That's very unusual for us to not have comprehensive information in our general call center about it, but because it's such a special area, they're just not going to know your answer to the motor fuel part of it. Now, sales tax, business tax, all that other stuff, yeah, call us. Yeah, we're glad to help you out.
And likewise, if you're talking to Mike and Rodney's group about motor fuels and something comes up about sales tax, they might send you back over to our general call center.
That's exactly
they
right.
are motor
Absolutely.
fuels tax gurus. Oh, that is their area. So, like Billy said, we don't like to switch people around and transfer you, but this is just one of those tax types that is so specific that this group deals with, and our general call center doesn't. So,
all right. Well, thanks everybody for attending today, and don't forget about the survey, right, Katie?
That's right. You'll get a little survey upon exiting. That helps us out with making adjustments as needed to these free monthly tax webinars. Next month, the last Tuesday of the month is business tax for contractors. You can look at the upcoming schedule of other webinars on our webinars page that we showed you earlier. But join us. They're always on the last Tuesday of the month, always at 9 a.m. Central, unless we are closed for some reason. The schedule is subject to change. We're always coming up with new ideas for topics to present to you guys. And a lot of those topics we get from you when you're taking the survey as you exit. One of the questions says, do you have any feedback or ideas for webinars that we can do? So we want to cater to your needs and talk about what you want to hear about. So let us know if you think of any ideas for future webinars. And just thanks so much for being with us. And thank you so much, Rodney and Mike. We
Thanks everybody.
couldn't do this without your expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone. Have a great day. Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.